everybody, how's it going? It's Jamie, the Crafty DIY guy, and I'm back. I have got a compilation video for you guys today. It is all of my farmhouse projects that I've worked on throughout the years. Now, these compilation videos are kind of new for me, and people seem to be enjoying them a whole lot, so that's kind of why I'm doing them. Also, I do want to let you know that I am working on some new content. Don't worry. I've had a rough couple weeks. I had to have some surgery, and now I have to have a follow-up, and it's just a lot going on right now. I'm so thankful for all of my subscribers and for everybody that's been here watching the videos. Thank you guys so much. My long-term subscribers, I call you guys my OGs. I really appreciate you being here and hanging in there with me. And let's just get to the videos because I'm just blah, 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 blah. All right, bye guys.
Took one of these rounded vases with the flat top from Dollar Tree. Also a 4-pack of these glass bowls that I picked up the last time I went to Dollar Tree, which was about 3 months ago. It feels like it anyway. If by chance you can't find these materials or you don't have them on hand, you can use one of these small, skinnier vases, as well as these plastic serving, kind of like dessert cups that you can get at Dollar Tree. And then for my paint, I just used this Rust-Oleum 2 times the coverage ultra white matte spray paint. I just simply took my super glue gel that I also grabbed at Dollar Tree and just used a generous amount across the top and then just glued this small glass bowl on top, kind of like this. I waited a couple hours for it to dry, and then I took it outside and gave everything a nice coat of spray paint. I would say I probably did about 3 coats of light spray paint on this. That way I got nice even coverage. And this is what it looks like when it's on the mantle. You could certainly leave it just like this and it's gorgeous. You could also add a candle to the top, or you could group it together with some other vases and flowers like I've done here. I really love the way this looks, and I'm going to keep this one for myself. Hey guys, you got a little bit of a sneak peek for this project, but you're going to grab some of these rub-on transfer letters from Dollar Tree. Also some of this twine, one of these cutouts that's in the shape of a cross, and then some wood beads. I purchased mine at Amazon. If you don't have any plain wood beads, you could use Dollar Tree beads and then just paint them. I will put a link below to mine. And then this is my Craft Smart antiquing wax that I also used on this project. I took all of my beads and just put them on a skewer. I usually do this whenever I'm working with beads that I have to paint. It just makes things a lot easier. And literally, I just kind of put them in the pattern that I thought I would like the best for my tassel. I did it in too large, too small, too large, too small. And then I always dab a little bit of hot glue on each end of my skewer. That helps keep those beads on that skewer while I'm painting, and prevents them from flying across the room, which has happened more than one occasion. Then I take some of my antiquing wax and just rub them literally up and down on the beads until I get the coverage that I need. I will do usually a pretty heavy coat on them, and then also will take my rag and you'll see I'll start to wipe away some of that antiquing wax as I'm going through this process. And that is just really kind of my technique for this kind of aged wood look that I'm going for. And then I also repeated the process on the cross itself. The next thing I did was take some Scotch tape and just wrap it around the end of my twine. I wanted to do this because it actually makes threading those beads a lot easier. I took my skewer and just cut the edge off where I had hot glued it, and then started pulling the beads off of the skewer and threading it right onto the twine. I did this one by one until both of my skewers were completely threaded onto the twine. And just tied the end onto the cross itself. I made sure that the knot for the twine was at the top of the cross, and then after that was done, I just pushed all of those beads down to where they were tightly sitting right on top of the cross, and then I took the other side of my twine, cut it, and created a tassel. When I do this, I just take a lot of twine and just wrap it around my fingers, kind of like you're seeing here. I do this until it gets to about the thickness that I want. I tend to like my tassels to be a little beefy, I guess you'd say. And then I took the end of my twine there, and as you can see, snipped off a little piece, tied it just at the end to help keep it together, and I did this kind of in a loose knot. And then I spread out the kind of the loop or the circle, hopefully this is making sense, and just kind of fluff the end of it there and cut it. That way it would be kind of tassel-y looking. And then I wanted to tie off that centerpiece to kind of give me that tassel. And so I just proceeded to wrap twine around the kind of the top half there until I got it to a size and thickness that I like. And then after I did that, I was able to tie that off and then snip off the ends of that. And I did put just a little dab of hot glue just to hold that knot together and to make sure that it was good and solid. And then when I was done kind of creating my tassel, I just literally tied it on to the end of the rope. And that was it. And then I took a leftover peanut container. This is a plastic peanut container. I spray painted it white and then tied my tassel to the top of it. And I love the way this looks. For our lamp projects today, we're going to be doing two different kind of lamps. We're going to do one that is kind of a more traditional farmhouse, kind of what you see on like the kind of bended arms. And you're going to use this plastic bowl for that. And then you're going to need to grab one of these round kind of wire baskets. This is going to be kind of a more kind of country farmhouse, if you will. Then you're going to grab a couple of these hanging light bulb kits. I only have one of them, so I'm going to kind of improvise. But they're battery operated, so be sure to grab some batteries. And hopefully you already have these on hand. And then this wood circle, I'm going to use it on the plastic bowl and not on the kind of wire basket look, because it just would look kind of strange on there. The other thing that I'm going to do is use these oversized popsicle sticks. I used these in my farmhouse clock DIY just a little while ago. Okay, guys, so for the kind of wire basket lampshade, I'm actually just going to be using these popsicle sticks, and I'm cutting them to be the exact size as this side of my basket. Now, you can see here that I'm just kind of using one as a template, really. And then once I've got that template kind of set out, I just lay out down my other sticks and grab my straight edge and just really kind of loosely make a template. I grabbed a red Sharpie because that was the first thing that I had. A pencil probably would have been a lot better, but it was fine. The paint ends up covering it up, so it's not an issue at all. I think I cut about probably 15 of these sticks. And then it was time to paint them after I had already cut them all down to size. Now, typically, first I used this wax from Waverly, and I love the wax from Waverly, but I ended up wanting to use chalk paint instead. So I used the wax first, and then I went over everything with chalk paint. So bonehead decision there on my part. But you can see when you're painting these smaller sticks, they tend to kind of move around a lot, and they're kind of a pain in the butt, right? Oh, I outsmarted them, and I used a little bit of hot glue. I just put a small dab on the back of each popsicle stick, stuck it down to my parchment paper, and then painted away. Now, I'm a little bit of a bonehead and forgot to show you this step, but as you can see here, I glued my sticks to the side of the basket, leaving a little bit of about a finger's worth of space. And now I'm just kind of going through and chalk painting any of that black wire, really. Just kind of doing a dry brush, really. I just don't want the black shininess to detract from the kind of whitewash that's currently on the popsicle sticks. So that is what I did there. And then for this particular one, you'll see in my next video, I had a little bit of an oopsie. And so I didn't have the hanging light bulb kit, but I did have a hanging light kit with a actual light bulb that you plug in. So I decided to go ahead and take my little pink shears here from Dollar Tree, my little pink wire cutters, and I just kind of cut enough of a hole in the top of the shade or the bottom of the basket to add my light source. So now you can see it's got a really cool Edison bulb in it, and I love the way that this one turned out. I'm very happy with it. For the next one, this was going to be the plastic bowl. Now, I didn't have a drill battery. My Ryobi drill battery actually died. So I'm going to try an attempt here to just put a hole in this plastic bowl using a hammer and a nail. And I'm going very, very slow just to kind of initially get a pinhole in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screw with a screwdriver and then feed it through that hole and make the hole bigger. And that tape that you see there, that actually helps the bowl from splitting. And then I eventually kind of work my way up to a larger screw. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. You can see the larger screw hole, and it just kind of makes that hole better. And it kind of worked out good. And the light kit still wasn't quite going through there, so I just made the hole bigger. Now, the one thing that I did want to do is shorten this a little bit. I thought that this was a little too long. So I'm going to take this extra string here and just add a little bit of hot glue right there and just try to kind of tighten it up, if you will. That way this light doesn't hang down too far past the actual lamp. The other thing that I realized is because I didn't have a drill, I wasn't going to be able to drill into my previous piece of wood. So I had this orange scrap that is now out of frame, and I ended up using that. So I took everything outside. I spray painted it navy because I was out of black paint as well. And I'm okay with the navy because I love blue. And I spray painted the lid of everything. And then for the bowl, I wanted to make sure that the light really reflected nicely in this one. So I first spray painted the inside of the bowl with my silver metallic spray paint. And then when that dried, I just flipped it over and painted it navy to match the navy blue wood circle that we had on the top. And now that everything is dry, it's time to put this light through this hole. Now, the hole was still a little small, but I was able to grab one of my bamboo skewers and help kind of feed that nylon string through the hole. But unfortunately, this is where I started to have some problems. The cording on that light source is just very, very thin. And I grabbed a screwdriver and tried to widen the hole, and it ended up not working too well. Eventually, I did get the cord through the hole, but the cord ended up snapping on it. And so I literally just hot glued the light bulb right to the lamp itself. I just took some trimmers or some clippers and just kind of trimmed off the piece that the kind of hanging piece was from. And it still works out really well because you just unscrew this and then you can still change the batteries. All right, you guys, don't get me wrong. I love the way this looks indoors in my office with my decor, but I am obsessed with the way this looks on my front porch. It is the perfect complement to my little front porch that I love so, so much, and it just welcomes guests and it makes me feel good. The first thing you're going to need is 2 glass vases from Dollar Tree. I used these in 2 different sizes. I also grabbed some of these poster letters from Dollar Tree and some wick wood candle lids. These are from Walmart, and rubbing alcohol. All of this cost me about $8. Believe it or not, these wick wood candle lids fit perfectly on the glass vases from Dollar Tree. Now, the one thing I will say is that they do smell like the candle that you purchase. So you'll want to give them a really, really good washing. I washed them in antibacterial soap and then also did a good dousing of rubbing alcohol on them. Unfortunately, the smell did not completely come out, so I would encourage you to wrap your food in food-safe plastic. Now, take your lids outside and simply just spray paint them. I went with this oil-rubbed black bronze color because it's going to fit perfectly in my kitchen. The next thing you're going to want to do is apply your letters directly to the glass. Now, you're not going to want to smooth these down extra hard. You're just going to want to put them on the glass and make sure there's a good contact between the glass and the lettering so none of your paint seeps through. You can see on this one, I'm spelling out the word carb. And I originally started with one with the words yum on it, but unfortunately, the yum vase did not turn out quite as well as I was hoping for. So we went with something a little different, and I did one that said carb, and then I did another one that says eat. Once my letters were stuck, I did take them outside to spray paint, and I just gave them each a thin coating, 2 coats total of paint. As you can see here, my yum just was not working out really well. The lettering was sticking, the paint was starting to peel, so I scrapped that one and went with the second version, eat and carb. These turned out perfectly. And here they are, the finished product. I've got my carbs, my pasta in the carb container, and more pasta in the eat container. I think they are perfect on my countertops. They look fantastic next to my stove, and I am thrilled with the way that these turned out. They are the perfect addition to my industrial farmhouse kitchen. What I did was take my white bird and paint it with 2 coats of black chalk paint. I just wanted to give it a really nice matte finish, almost like a metallic. And then after that, I took my Jenga wood blocks, glued them together in a tower where I was able to kind of alternate the blocks. And I took it outside and spray painted it brown. And then I put some gold metallic spray paint right over top of the brown while it was still wet. And then glued the bird on top of the tower. And this is what it looks like on my mantelpiece. I absolutely love it. I think it's a great addition to my decor, and it fits in perfectly with my decorating scheme. For the next project, I wanted to go ahead and start working on my nautical rope placemats. Now for this project, I literally just took my nautical rope, put it on top of some parchment paper, and then started gluing it together like this in a circular motion. I will say that this ended up taking a lot more nautical rope than I expected. I used 4 packages of the 9.5 foot nautical rope per placemat. The great thing about doing it on the parchment paper was that the glue never was able to stick perfectly to the parchment paper, so it made moving it around really, really easily. And then for the next part here, you can see that it's still pretty flexible, so you want to give it a nice sturdy backing. What I did was I just took a piece of scrap cardboard that I have here. It's not pretty, but it's going to be on the bottom side of the placemat, and it's going to definitely help hold this together. So I just took my Gorilla spray adhesive and just covered the back of that cardboard really good with that spray glue, and then just glued it down to the back of that placemat and let it dry nice and solid. Then after I had all 4 of my placemats ready to go with the cardboard backing and with the glue dry, of course, then I took my lighter and just kind of burned off some of the fringy edges that this nautical rope tends to get from Dollar Tree to give it a more clean, kind of refined look. And here are my final 4 placemats. I absolutely love the way that these look. They're the perfect addition to my dining room. They go really well with the jute rug and the khaki colored walls, the gray and the navy chairs and table. Everything looks amazing. Now I'm going to add the final touch to the dining room with some navy and nautical rope mirrors. I decided to go ahead and use both of the burner covers. So I used 2 different size mirrors. This first one is one of the smaller candle mirrors that I just kind of centered up in the middle of the mirror. And then I started to wrap around the nautical rope, just gluing it straight down to the burner cover itself. And I repeated this process with the larger mirror as well. That way I could have 2 different size mirrors that would complement each other. And then lastly, again, burning off those edges. And this is what the final products look like on the wall. I love these. I think that they look perfect and they are a great tie-in to the dining room as a whole. The first thing I grabbed was my Dollar Tree sander, and I simply just sanded down the red board as well as my white board, getting them as smooth as possible. I spray painted the white board with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum, and I also spray painted the red board with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum paint. For the industrial version of this project, I wanted to use twine to hold these candle holders onto my board. And for the more farmhouse version, I wanted to use this striped ribbon that I purchased at Walmart. I simply just twisted it around the neck of the bottle. For my holes, I went ahead and just eyeballed these and marked them with my Dollar Tree ruler and then simply drilled through. And as you can see, I left myself plenty of ribbon to be able to feed the candle holders through onto each side, trimming off the edges and gluing them down. I also repeated this same exact process with the industrial version of this, using either the twine or the nautical rope. For this last version, I wanted to go ahead and add a little decorative touch to the farmhouse version. So I made this holder with my striped ribbon and then created this cute, adorable little bow to finish it off at the top. And then one last embellishment to the farmhouse version. I took my Dollar Tree stencil out and just freehanded, painted, filled in the holes of this stencil that I did. And I repeated this process on the top and the bottom of this candle holder. And here you can see my finished farmhouse version of my Dollar Tree candle holder. And the industrial version of my Dollar Tree candle holder. The first thing I did after removing the plastic from my 3 boards was decide that I didn't want to stain or paint them anymore. I decided to keep them natural. Then I took an index card and just popped a hole in it with my hole punch, and then used that as a template to mark each one of my boards on the 4 corners. After I was done with that, I went ahead and pulled out the drill and just literally started drilling on all 4 corners where those 4 X's marked the spot. I then took some Dollar Tree twine and wrapped it around the 3 binder rings that I was using on each one of my shelves. I took a little bit of tape and just taped off each one of the ends of my nautical rope. That way it was easier to feed through the holes themselves. Once I had one side done, then it was time to go ahead and take that binder ring and feed my nautical rope through that. It's important, you're going to have 2 pieces of rope, and you want each rope to feed through the binder ring itself because you're going to use this to hang it on the wall. And once I had my rope and my binder rings all fed through properly, then I went ahead and just tied knots in the end of each rope, and then just pulled them extra tight with my pliers. And this is what they look like in the finished guest bedroom. I absolutely love them. I think they look so classic and so perfect. And each shelf was literally made for less than $2 each. Very first project, we're going to take 2 of these Dollar Tree pillar candles. I can find these pretty regularly in my stores. Hopefully everybody else can as well. You're also going to need 2 of these glass pillars, the kind of the ones with the fluted bottom. You're going to simply just take some hot glue, glue them straight on top of the candle holders. Like, this DIY could not be any easier, guys. Like, you're literally just going to repeat the process on the second one, and you have 2 beautiful candle holders that are perfect for any decor. You could put different colored candles in them. You can really do a lot with these. For my most favorite project to date, I took 2 hula hoops, a small child-sized one and an adult one. I also grabbed a set of dessert plates from Dollar Tree. These come in an 8-pack, and they're typically clear. This gold one was just left over from an old project that I had. I also grabbed some oversized popsicle sticks. I was able to get these on Amazon. And then a tomato cage from Dollar Tree as well. And then you can have some embellishments or twine. I ended up not using them. Then first thing you're going to do is remove this foil sticker from your hula hoops. This is a little tedious, but once you get it going, it does move pretty fast. And you're just going to continue to pull all this off. And you'll see here in a second, your hula hoops will separate, and that's totally fine. You actually need to do that because you want to get rid of those little beads that are inside there, and then simply just use electrical tape and tape it back together. And then I laid my 2 rings kind of out, and then I took my tomato cage bars and just cut them down to size so they would fit within the circle, the smaller circle, and then just did a crisscross formation. And then I hot glued my gold plate in the center on the top. I actually didn't film this part, but I think you kind of get the idea. And then I laid out my numbers. I started off with 3, and then 6, and then 9 and 12. And then as I worked my way around the clock, I finished the numbers kind of like you see here, and just kind of started gluing everything down with some hot glue. I then flipped this over, and I took my remaining tomato bars and just cut them down into smaller sizes to help brace the outer ring. I took everything outside after the hot glue had dried and did 3 coats of a light black. It's a 3 light coats of paint. I used a black hammered spray paint for this. And this is what my farmhouse clock looks like on my mantle. I am obsessed. I absolutely love this. And then I decided to take it outside because I thought it would look really good on the side of my house as some front porch decoration. All right, everyone, for our first project, you're going to need one of these Dollar Tree windmills, a piece of scrap wood, and a wooden dowel rod that I also picked up at Dollar Tree. Go ahead and drill a hole in the center of your piece of scrap wood. This is going to enable you to prop that dowel rod right up in the center there. I had to put a little force down on it to get it going through there because this was a piece of an old countertop, actually. And then go ahead and add a little bit of hot glue down in the middle of your hole, and then just put your dowel rod directly down in there like so. I went ahead and just forced it down in there, and then any of that hot glue that had kind of oozed out, I just kind of wiped that away with my finger and then kept moving right along. And then I took my pliers and I kind of flattened out the top of my dowel rod there. I wanted that to have a nice grip and a nice hold to the back of the windmill. So I added a kind of nice dollop of hot glue there and then just directly glued this down. And you can also see that outside ring of the windmill. I went ahead and I put a little bit of super glue on the back side of that as well. That way it would just glue it directly down to the dowel rod, and just waited for it to dry. And then once it dried, it looks like this. I really like the way that it looks even like this. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it all the same exact color. I used a Rust-Oleum hammered black spray paint, and I really love the way that this turned out. I think it's super contemporary. It could go with modern farmhouse. It could go with regular farmhouse. There's a lot of different ways that you could do this, and really makes a nice impact on your decor. So for project number 2, you may remember when I did my garage haul I think it was a couple months ago now, I grabbed these metal trays, and I loved these, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I had 2 of these kind of like, I don't know what they are, like little side dish bowls. I had some jinglewood blocks, and then I saw this video that according to Kat did, and she used these scoops as sconces, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Then I also had some of my Gorilla like super glue, and then that Rust-Oleum black hammered paint once again. So this was going to be the perfect combination to turn these trays into sconces. So to build my sconces, first thing I did was put some of this Gorilla Super Glue down in the bottom of my pet scoop. And then I took the wood block, the Jenga wood block, and just set that down on top. And then I also repeated that on the second one. You'll see a little bit of an overhang there, and I did that on purpose because I want the candle holder to be more kind of straight, and that's what those small little glass bowls are going to be used for. So I just repeated this on both of these, and then once it was done, I just set them aside to dry. You don't see it there, but I do add the little glass bowls to the top of that too, and just literally put them aside and let them dry. And I did let them dry actually overnight before I started to spray paint them or do anything else with them. So after everything dried, this is what it's going to look like. That way I can put those candles right in the base of those little glass bowls. So I took the scoops outside and spray painted them with that hammered black spray paint once again, doing the back side and the front side to make sure that I had good coverage all the way around. And then after they were dry, this is what they looked like. I really liked the way that these looked. And I also love that you could still see the scoop lines, or the 2 cup and the 1 cup lines in the back there. And then essentially what we're going to be doing is gluing these directly down to these metal plates, or these metal platters. I'm using I'm using E6000, and it's actually black E6000. And then I'm adding a little bit of hot glue just to help speed that E6000 along. I love E6000. I wish they had a quick dry formula, but they don't. So this is the way I work around that and get it to dry a lot faster. And now that everything is dry, this is what these sconces look like. I absolutely love these. They are perfect for farmhouse, perfect for modern farmhouse, and they're going to go so well with that sneak peek project that you see, that windmill. So I went ahead and I grabbed 5 of my fan blades that I picked up from my garage trash haul, a Dollar Tree hula hoop, some of my antiquing wax from Craftsmart. And then again, I'm using the hammered spray paint, but this time in a dark steel color. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything outside and I'm going to spray paint it. So those blades have a dark side and a light side. I just went ahead and sprayed the lighter side down. And then I also sprayed down the hula hoop. Now I did take all of that kind of shiny sticker off of there and then just split it apart and then spray painted this as well and allowed both of these to dry before bringing them back inside. And then once I had everything dry, I took it inside and I just kind of laid it out on the carpet, and I kind of figured out the best way and the best format to kind of fan the fan blades, if you will. And then I took my half circle that I also cut out of wood. I didn't film this part because my neighbor actually helped me with that part. But I just went ahead and drilled some pilot holes all the way around the circle just to kind of give it the effect of rivets in the fan itself. And then I literally just started putting screws in and just securing those fan blades to that piece of wood. And then added pipe brackets to be able to hold the hula hoop onto each one of the fan blades all the way around. I then wanted to age the fan blades, so I used my antiquing wax from Craftsmart, and I just started to go over each one of the fan blades, and kind of true to form, I go a little heavy with the antiquing wax, and then I leave it sit there for a little while. And then after I've got everything really, really well covered and working kind of to the way that I like it to be, then I start wiping it away. The center piece of the fan there, that center piece is wood. So that's actually holding the stain a lot better than the blades are, which I'm okay with actually in this case, because the center of the fan should be a little more worn in some of the fans that I've seen, because, you know, that's the part that's doing all the work in the fan. So again, going over heavily, wiping it off, doing this back and forth until I have the color that I like. I then took my Dollar Tree hacksaw and just cut off the edges of that hula hoop, and then I went through with some hot glue and just under each section, kind of where that bracket met the fan blades, I went ahead and just glued those down as well. And this is what the finished product looks like. I really love the way this turned out. It's got a cool farmhouse vibe. It's got a cool modern farmhouse vibe. If you painted it a different color, you can hang it over your bed. A lot of great options with this piece. First thing I did was take one of my Dollar Tree planters. This is the stackable planter. And I just took my wood burning tool and burned a hole in the bottom of it. Now, my plan was to completely cut out this circle that runs along the middle of this planter here. And so I just poked small holes in it and just worked my way around with my tool until I had a complete hole there. Then I took the stackable planter outside. I put it in the center of my patio table and I put the umbrella right down the middle of it. Guys, this was so easy, and look, it spins. You can put condiments in it. You can put silverware in it if you're getting ready to have a birthday party or a barbecue. The other thing you could do is put some candles in it for a romantic night. This has a lot of versatility. And guess what? You could also put plants in it. Go figure. All right, guys, I hope you liked this. All right, everyone, and for project number 1, we are going to take 2 of these wooden Dollar Tree signs. Also, I'm going to grab 3 of these wooden crates from Crafter Square, also found at Dollar Tree. I took my 2 signs and cut them down at a slight angle with my circular saw. The idea is that these are going to lean up against the wall. Sorry about all that camera shakeage. I then used my Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint and just gave everything 2 coats of chalk paint. I did this on all sides of the boards just to make sure that they were nice and consistent. Then it was time for me to speed wax my my crates, and I did this with the Waverly Antiquing Wax, kind of like I typically do. Put it on very heavy and then just wipe it off. After everything had dried, it was time for me to glue my first crate down, and I used a combo of my wood glue and hot glue. I went ahead and just glued it down on one side at a slight angle, kind of like you see here, and then repeated that process with my other 2 crates. That way I would have 3 shelves on my leaning shelf. After that was all completed, then I did add the second board on the top and just made sure everything was good and stable and had time to dry. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. It is the perfect little paint station or craft station for your office. What I also like about this is that it's super versatile and you could use it perhaps in a kitchen. It could be your kind of snack station, if you will. It's got a lot of different uses to it, and I think it's a lot of fun. And our next project is going to be a fun one. We're going to use some of this fun ribbon or wire leaf stuff that I got on Amazon. Also, we're going to grab one of these Dollar Tree home signs. This one has seen a better day. And then also I have this leftover holiday sign, and we're just going to remove this metal piece and save this for another project. First thing we're going to do is start painting our board. I'm just using my Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint, and I'm just giving this 2 good coatings of chalk paint so we can move on to the faux wood technique that you guys are going to absolutely love. But before I do that, I am going to separate my letters and pull really hard to actually get them separated, and then I'm going to take them outside and we're going to give them 2 coats of my dark steel paint. And now on to the faux wood technique. I'm using a product called Retique. Retique is a paint that enables you to stain a painted surface. I know that sounds crazy, but it is a very cool product. Anything that is painted that you want to have a wood surface without having to strip it, you paint it with this Retique product. And we're going to put 2 coats of Retique on here. And what this paint is it's actually a paint that has a texture in it. So the texture is going to hold a stain. So like a normal wood stain that you would use on an unfinished piece of wood, you will be able to stain this board to look like real wood. I'm telling you guys, it's crazy. It sounds crazy, but it works. It's a little stinky. It does work though. All right, now that everything is dry, I am going to take some Old English shoe polish. You can use regular wood stain as well if you'd like on this. I didn't have any wood stain, so I'm using shoe polish instead. As you can see, the wood grain is really starting to show through from the texture that's in that Retique that I told you about. And you will just kind of continue to go back and forth in the same motion. I like to go up and down with my stain, or in this case with my shoe polish, until you achieve that color. Look how gorgeous that color is. I took my pencil and then just drew in some lines to give it a more wood grain look. And then I took each one of my letters and glued them on top of my wood grain like so. I also took my ribbon that I had, that little viney ribbon, I don't know what it's called, and just kind of created my O, kind of like so, and then just took some of my antiquing wax that was left over on the brush and just went over the edges and lightly across the tops of each letter. It gave it a kind of a cool aged galvanized look that I was really happy with. And this is what the finished product looks like. I think this is super adorable. It's kind of a cool modern farmhouse way of welcoming you home. How cute was that? All right, and for our final project, we're going to grab 3 Dollar Tree candle holders. We're also going to grab 3 of these Crafter Square boxes and some Dollar Tree rocks. All you're going to do with the rocks is really just weigh down the boxes. So you can put a couple rocks in each box and then put the drawer in backwards, kind of like you see here. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of hot glue and just seal those drawers shut. That way they don't slide out. The next thing I'm going to do is take my Quick Hold E6000 and I'm going to glue these glass candle holders right on top of those wooden blocks, kind of like you see here. Sorry about being out of frame there. You would think I would know what I'm doing by now with this YouTube thing. But now you can see I'm just kind of placing it exactly in the center of each cube, and I'm just going to repeat that with each one of my blocks, kind of like so. It took about an hour for my E6000 to dry. Once that happened, I took everything outside and gave it a nice coating of my flat black spray paint from Rust-Oleum. I did 2 coats to give it this gorgeous finish, and then after everything was dry, I took it inside, and this is what they look like on the mantle. I love these so much. I saw something very similar in a very high-end catalog that was about $85. I am thrilled with the way these turned out. All right, everyone, for our first project, we're going to take a Dollar Tree wood plank as well as a plastic horse, which I picked up in the toy department at my local Dollar Tree store. And you're going to simply just glue this horse directly to the board. It's really that easy. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some hot glue here. I'm going to put it on the hoofs. I think that's what the horse's feet are called. And I'm going to put a fairly decent amount, but not too much, because I don't want the glue to show. I'm going to get rid of those pesky glue strings, and then I'm going to glue the horse directly down to the board. After everything is dried, it will look like this. And then we're going to take it outside and we're going to spray paint it. I'm spray painting it with an antique gold spray paint from Rust-Oleum. I did 3 really light coats on this just to make sure that I had a nice, clean, even coverage on everything. And then after it dried, I took it inside, and this is what it looks like on my bar. Again, I love this. I think it's just super classic looking, very elegant. To me, it looks like it's a metal sculpture. It could really go anywhere. I think this could even be really cool as bookends, possibly, depending on what kind of weight you used on the wood plank. But again, very cool and super versatile, in my opinion anyway. For our next project, you're going to take one of these plastic trays from Dollar Tree. You can find this in the garden section. And then you're also going to grab the brand new nautical rope that Dollar Tree has out that is in this cream color. There are several different sizes out there. Be cautious when you're picking yours up. I grabbed the 11-foot batch versus the smaller ones. So I grabbed 3 of those. I'm definitely not going to need all 3 of those, but I just wanted you to be able to see. So go ahead and trim off the end of your rope just to get rid of that piece of tape that's there. You can try and cut that tape off if you want. It was just easier for me to just hack it off. So I took my tray, flipped it upside down, and then literally I'm going to start just gluing my nautical rope all around the bottom of this tray. Now, I'm going to do this in 2 rows, and I'm going to work my way all the way around. And you can see that I'm not putting glue on like every single bit, but I am using a decent amount of glue. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this is kind of on the side of this tray. I want this to be as solid as possible. And then when you flip this back over, you'll see that the 2 rows of the nautical rope that you're doing on this kind of flip side is going to be plenty. You're not going to need any other additional nautical rope on there because you will be covering this completely, and nobody will really be able to tell unless they pick it up. And if they pick it up and look at it underneath, then they're butt heads. And when you're done gluing everything, this is what it will look like all the way around. If you need to go in and touch up any little places with some glue, it's pretty easy to do this. This is a cotton rope, so it's not as kind of harsh or stiff, I would say, as the regular nautical rope. And then for this part, I'm going to go ahead and just put some glue on the end here, and then try not to totally burn my hands off. And then I'm just going to start to glue this down, and I'm going to work my way around the top of the tray. Now it looks like I'm gluing it directly down on the rope, but I'm actually not. I'm gluing right along that top edge. And yeah, it's going to overlap a little bit onto that rope, and that's totally fine. And then what you're going to do is work your rope all the way around and completely cover the entire base of your tray. And as you can see, you're going to keep wrapping and wrapping and wrapping all of that nautical rope all the way around until you've completely covered the base of your tray. Some of the grooves and some of the dips that are in the tray itself that kind of are designed really to kind of take the water away from your plants and your pots. You may have to add a little bit of extra glue in those holes just to make sure that your rope is held down really nicely. But again, you'll just work your way all the way around until you've got this tray completely covered. Then to create some handles on my tray, I took a piece of nautical rope and just cut it in half. I made sure that each end was the same length, and then I literally just glued this down on top of the existing nautical rope. I did overlap it just a little bit so it would go onto that clear plastic, and this is what the tray looks like with the handles. Super cute, right? Now, this is what it looks like in the bathroom. You could easily use this for candles and some Dollar Tree succulents or some rocks or all of the above. This is how it's actually going to stay in my bathroom, and I absolutely love this. And for my last project, you are going to need 2 of these Dollar Tree candle holders. These are kind of rounded. They almost look like wine glasses, but they've got that little fluted bottom. And then you're going to take some of these tall, skinny Dollar Tree candlesticks. And I grabbed 2 that were in 2 different heights because I thought that would look really good as 2 candle holders. And then also for this project, you're going to need to grab some of these seashells from Dollar Tree. You can get these in a couple different varieties. I was able to get all 3 varieties here. So I'm going to be using a mix of these. Also, you're going to grab some of these Dollar Tree candles. I love these. They come in a glass candle holder, and then some sand or some pebbles of some kind. Now, I am reusing some old candlesticks from a previous project. So mine were already painted, and they were this great navy. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take some hot glue and just glue down these candle holders because I'm going to be reusing a lot of my projects and trying to extend the life of some of these things. That way I don't constantly have to go out and buy stuff, or so I'm not wasting anything. And so all you're going to do is take your candle holder and literally just glue it right down on top of your candlestick. You can flip it over upside down, kind of like I did, just to make sure that it's straight because it's not going to go perfectly on there. And then if you need to, go through with some hot glue and just add a little bit of extra hot glue around the edge there. That way it will hold really good. And if you do this light enough, you're not even going to see the hot glue. And again, this is pretty easy to do. And then you'll just repeat it with your second candlestick as well. Once everything is dry, go ahead and add your sand or your pebbles to your glasses, kind of like I'm doing here. You can put as much or as little in here as you want to. I kind of want mine to have that beachy feel, so I'm putting a fairly decent amount of these pebbles in here. And then also you're going to take your seashells and just put these in the glasses. Now what I'm doing is putting the shells kind of on the outer side of the center, kind of putting them around the edge of the inside of the glass there. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that candle holder is going to just kind of barely fit through there. And you'll see here in just a second that you have to kind of leave that space in order to do that. So take your candle holder, just kind of push it down in the center. And once you've kind of got those placed, then you can stick some of the shells in between, but you can see it's a little challenging to do that. So that's why I recommend doing it the other way. It's certainly not impossible. So again, just decorate it up however you like. All right, you guys, and here is the finished product. I absolutely love these. It gives the bathroom a very cool nautical feel still, but it elevates it. I think it makes it look very high-end, kind of like an expensive beach house versus a inexpensive beach house. I'm assuming there's an inexpensive beach house out there somewhere, right? Our first project, you are going to need some of these glass bottles from Dollar Tree. These are the ones with the little cork top in them. You're also going to want to grab some twine from Dollar Tree and an 8x10 canvas from Crafter's Square. So the first thing I did was just remove that canvas, and then I painted everything in my gray chalk paint. I'm just using my paint board here, and I'm just going directly over the entire canvas, both sides and the insides of this, until everything is covered completely in that sheep's milk gray. Then I am going to flip this over upside down, and I'm going to take my bottle and tie it onto my string, kind of like so. And what I'm doing is when I'm tying these bottles to the string, I'm actually making sure that the knot of that is on the back side of the bottle. So hopefully that makes sense. I was going to originally do 3 across, but then I decided just to do 2 across. And so I'm literally tying a knot around the neck of this bottle, and then I'm making sure that that knot is on that back side. Once my bottles were spaced out properly, I just went ahead and made sure that that knot was extra tight, and then I took my string and just overlapped it onto the frame, stapled it down so it would stay into place, and then also just tied my twine off. And then I repeated this going down on the frame itself. I did this with 2 bottles tied to the top, 1 bottle in the middle, and then another 2 bottles on the bottom part. I then picked up my bag of Dollar Tree rocks and just found the smallest rocks that were in each one of those that would fit inside of each of my glass bottles. And then I went outside to my garden and picked some of my marigolds. I love the way that this looks. I think it's super sweet. It brings the outdoors indoors, and it's a great use of those small Dollar Tree glass bottles. And for our next project, you are going to need one of these oval galvanized containers or metal container from Dollar Tree. I picked up a snorkel the last time I went to Walmart. I was not able to find any snorkels at my Dollar Tree. When you're grabbing your snorkel, make sure that you can find one of these that's rounded like this and also has a plastic end like that. And then I grabbed this shower scrubby from Dollar Tree also. Go ahead and take your snorkel and just trim off the mouthpiece, kind of like you see me doing here. Then you can go ahead and take your shower scrubby and also trim this up. What I'm going to do is the handle here at the top, I'm just going to trim that with some scissors. It's actually really soft plastic, so it's actually rubber, I think, and it just trims off super easy. And the idea is to make it fit snugly within the snorkel, kind of like so. Now, when I did that, I noticed that my snorkel was not as even as I'd like it to be, so I did just go ahead and trim this down a little bit. This is important because you want your snorkel to be to have really good contact with that scrubby. Now, the only thing that I didn't like about the scrubby is that I didn't like those points that were on the end of it. So I took my scissors out and just started hacking away at all of those, kind of like you see here, just getting them as nice and flat as possible. Then I added a ton of hot glue on top of that scrubby and just connected the scrubby and the snorkel together, joining them as now my faucet. I do recommend go ahead and just holding this into place until it dries and you have really good contact. This is probably the most important part. Once everything is dry, then I took my ink chalk paint from Waverly and just started to paint literally everything with that ink chalk paint. And when I say everything, I did everything. I did the scrubby, I did the purple part of the snorkel, as well as the clear part of the snorkel. And I did end up doing 2 coats all the way down on both sides. I then took my snorkel and glued it on the inside of my container, kind of like so. You can see that bottom part that's orange. I didn't paint over that. That's kind of what I was using to hold on to the snorkel as I was painting it. Not a big deal. It's not going to show. I'm putting a pretty generous amount of hot glue on here, and I'm just going to literally glue this directly down to the side of the planter. And then once I finished with a lot of glue, as you can see, I added more glue to the bottom of the snorkel piece just to, again, make sure that this was going to hold. This is not going to go anywhere. And then I used a clamp to also just hold that into place until it dried. I thought my faucet needed a little bit of a handle, so I'm going to take one of these wooden X's and a couple of wood beads and just glue them together. I simply took my X, I glued a wood bead to the top of it. I was originally going to use that black knob that you see there, but then I decided I liked the look of the wood bead instead. So I just grabbed another wood bead that looked exactly like that previous one. And instead of using this knob here, which is kind of a nicer, more expensive knob, I went ahead and just grabbed another wood bead and glued that together like so. And then once everything was dry, I did chalk paint this in that same Waverly ink chalk paint. And then I simply just glued this on top of my faucet to give it the look of a on and off switch. And then also I decided to add feet to the bottom of this by simply gluing these wood blocks down to the bottom and then just simply painting them in my Waverly ink chalk paint. This is what it looks like when it's all done. I think it's super adorable and very cute. What I love about this project too is because it is a snorkel, you could very easily wire this with a pump and actually have water flowing through this. It's super cute, and I think it's a lovely addition to my front porch with all of my other plants and planters and such. What do you guys think? I love it. And for our next project, you are going to need one of these round mirrors from Dollar Tree. Also, you're going to grab a couple of wood beads. They can be any kind of wood bead, really. I just happen to have these unfinished ones. A dowel rod and a wood plank from Dollar Tree's Crafter Square. Then you're going to go ahead and measure your wood plank. These are about 7 inches long. And then you'll just simply find the middle spot, which was about 3.5 inches. And then I purposely did not center this in the center of the board. You'll see why when we start to build this, is kind of why you're not doing that. But I marked that center spot, and then I'm going to use that and drill a hole. That way my dowel rod can stand up in there. Did go ahead and add a little bit of hot glue. That way everything was held together very nicely and strong. And then the idea is we're going to take our mirror and measure the dowel rod on the back. I probably should have done this before, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. So just kind of eyeball it where you need to cut it and then mark it, and then just take your clippers, snap it right off, and then you've got a mirror that's going to be perfect for that size. I took my little wood beads and kind of propped them under the mirror, kind of like so. And then I took a pencil and just kind of marked where I was going to be gluing these down. The idea here is that the mirror is going to look like it's floating rather than for it to be mounted on that stick. Once you have the stand assembled, go ahead and start taking apart your mirror. You're going to put the mirror aside, and then you're going to take the stand and the frame itself outside and give those a good coating of spray paint. I'm choosing this antique gold color, and I'm just simply doing 2 coats, 2 kind of light coats. Not really, they're not really light. You can tell they're not light, right? And then I'm doing the stand as well in that quote unquote light coat of my antique gold. So then after everything was dry, I brought it inside. The great thing about these little mirrors is that that hanging hook on the back kind of works perfectly right over the dowel to help hold that in place, which is really cool. So then you're going to just make sure that your mirror is sitting on top of those wood beads at the bottom. So add a generous amount of hot glue onto the bottom beads, and then also hot glue onto the back like so. And this will hold together very, very nicely. And this is what the finished product looks like. I love this little mirror. It's super sweet. It would be great on a bookshelf or on a vanity, and you could paint it really any other color you wanted to that goes with your own decor style. Right, for the last project here, we are going to take one of these utility handles. It's like a broom handle or a mop handle. These are the handles that you can find in the cleaning section, and they have the miscellaneous attachments for like brooms and mops and such. Grab one of those, and then also grab 3 of these galvanized buckets with the hooks on them, kind of like these here. And then you're going to grab 2 ping pong balls out of your package of, I think it comes in like 6 or 8, I'm not sure. So I went ahead and just grabbed 2 of the ping pong balls out, and I'm cutting an X in both of them, kind of like so. And we're going to be sticking these on the end of that rod, which, by the way, I did cut down to about, it was about 4 feet, I would say. Then I'm adding a decent amount of hot glue in the ping pong ball itself, and I'm just going to glue this on each end of my rod. Then I went ahead and took my ink Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to hold one side of it while I am painting the rod as well as the ping pong ball itself. The rod only took like 1 coat, and then the ping pong balls did take about 2 coats of the chalk paint. Again, super easy, very easy to do. I did bring out the heat gun and just helped speed along that drying process. That way I could flip this rod over and dry the other side, or paint the other side rather, and then dry it as well. And then once that was done, this is what the finished rod looks like. Again, it's about 4 feet. I don't remember exactly. I didn't measure it. Then I took my buckets and I simply just bent that handle. Very, very easy to do. Just right over the rod itself. I did this on either end of the rod first for the 2 buckets, and then I did the bucket in the middle. So I'm gonna flip this around and just show you real quickly. It literally bends with no force at all, and super, super easy to do. And then I hung it on the wall, and this is what it looks like. Super cute. Now you could fill these buckets up with really anything you want. This is going actually in my guest bedroom. So again, imagine like it could be toiletries, it could be towels, it could be really anything. Or you can just fill it up with some beautiful spring flowers like I did here. Again, I think it's the perfect addition to my farmhouse guest bedroom, and I absolutely love this.